Hello, welcome to a brief discussion about the recently passed Pennsylvania Senate Bill 597 dealing with water and wastewater system asset management. The introduction to the presentation is this a necessary tool or an unnecessary regulation? Get started by defining what is asset management, which is a systematic process of developing, operating, maintaining, upgrading, and disposing of assets in the most cost-effective manner. Who needs asset management? There are three primary users: corporations, high net worth individuals, and financial intermediaries. The main reason of implementing an asset management plan would be to ensure that the organization's assets are used in the most efficient manner while managing and identifying risk. And also, who determines if an organization needs an asset management plan? And that usually comes down to the upper management levels. So getting into what's required in this Senate bill, it's saying that all publicly owned treatment facilities will be required to submit an approved asset management plan to the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. Included in the plan is a main renewal plan, a supply and treatment program, schedules for repair and replacement, mapping of infrastructure, project annual cost, including the initial implementation, as well as the effect, action, and maintenance cost as a yearly basis, the rate setting that this is going to cause, criteria used to create individual plans and programs. They also would like you to report on water meter testing, lead service line removal and replacement, cross connection control and backflow prevention, and also provide a certified cybersecurity plan. So now we'll talk about some of the unnecessary regulation with this type of legislation. The legislation itself is based towards, again, utilities where there is payments and money circulating. They continue to not push on the Department of Transportation, the materials that the Department of Transportation uses, and local agriculture dealing with runoff of stormwater. Who is responsible for the pass-fail grades and what is the basis? This is something that particularly provides a problem, being that nothing in the legislation shares a standard. There's no guideline in form. There is no checks and balances in place to show which system would be performing well versus a system that's performing not so well. Every system is different. Every system has a different amount of equipment. Nobody at the Public Utility Commission would be aware of what is in-house or what is not. So why are we spending on money? Why are we spending money then on something that can't be proven out? And again, back to the checks and balances. If you do not provide good information the first time, second time, third time, who is gonna check this and then reaffirm penalty? That's a difficult ask. If by not turning it in, you are effectively not qualified for funding. So who is going to be the guideline to say you've passed or failed is very difficult to understand. What are the analytics from the extra guidance to perform a better running system? Again, you put good information in this asset management, that you're going to get good information out. However, the long-term effects of what people are spending, especially in the smaller systems, I don't think that they'll ever be able to get the value out of an asset management program that would at any point affect the performance or the actual delivery or taking in of waste from a water perspective. I just threw up two quick, I know the one's blurry, but I threw up two quick diagrams, and both of those are basic activated sludge plants. However, you can see right away that by looking at the descriptions on the diagram, one's going to have a lot more detailed information than the other. And will the one that has a lesser intrusive process, will they then be punished by not providing the same information that the diagram on the bottom provides? they don't have that information because they don't have that equipment. And who's setting that guideline? Again, there's no clarity in the bill that states that. The main renewal plan, you can go from one block to the next with the same exact material that was put in play the same exact time, and one will be worn and the other one will not. And there's no rhyme or reason. This happens all the time with underground infrastructure. Pressures, influences of nutrients, all these things bear a factor on when things need to be replaced. Putting these things on paper on a specific schedule, especially things that are 40, 50, 70-year turnarounds, when something comes around and now the funding is not available to replace that was on your schedule, it's going to cause a disruption of budgetary items. Again, getting back to what I spoke about the last slide, from the supply and treatment program aspect, who in Public Utility Commission is going to know what necessarily hurdles we have to go over at individual places and what type of geography each place has. These are things that are not known and are going to have to be paid for to put in paper, so somebody at the state then can review it from a baseline perspective. Again, expenditures on the constituents, ratepayers, that is completely unnecessary. We pay for engineers up front that they do all the studies and understand what type of conveyance or distribution you need. Putting a plan together on the back end you're just double dipping. Again, from a consumer perspective, it's hard to explain that to any customer. And again, the funding aspect of this, there's no funding. So now we're going to be directly asking people to pay for reports that have already been done and proved out and are running. So it's a very difficult ask. The schedule for repair and replacement, again, putting this on paper is a budget disaster. Every year we throw a certain amount towards conveyance lines, towards the collection and distribution systems. Some years you go over budget, some years you're under. However, that steady methodical approach always seems to line up in the 3-year, 5-year window, and then you can then effectively change and improve your system, as opposed to doing it in one shot or on putting it on paper when things then, going back to the main renewal that we talked about, that things don't age the same. So now it's on paper, it didn't age the same, you get more life out of it, you shouldn't be digging it up to replace it then. The mapping of infrastructure, this is something that I, again, touch base on here later in the presentation, but this takes a professional, skilled person or individual, or multiple individuals, depending on the size of the system, to accomplish this work. And we already have a major pay disparity between our skilled operators and the rest of the skilled profession world. Putting another professional position in, or group of people in these organizations, are going to even create more pay disparity, have less workforce. We already are struggling to get people in, and this is another reason to push people away, because there will be no money to pay people. So let's look into the requirements, further. The projected annual costs, the implementation, acquiring data storage, data accuracy, continuity with all your other information. So all these things bear a high level of technical aspect that most operators do not have and or not going to have. So again, you're going to be outsourcing this at a very high cost. The effect and action plan, again, to maintain this, keep it going, you're going to need a champion on site, but then you lose some process control, some maintenance. Again, this puts a very big strain on people that are, the workforce is already very, 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 very thin for us. For most utilities, putting someone on staff is not going to be the most cost-effective practice. However, it's going to really push that the consultants that provide these services, they're going to be extremely busy. So there's going to be some times where, from a management perspective, we're not going to be getting the work done. The rate setting, they're passing a law knowing that rates will be affected, but they want to know how bad they're going to be affected. So every system is going to be a little different, but there is going to be a negative effect on rates, and they are aware of this. At this time, and with everything surging, inflation, the one thing that we can rely on is our natural resources. And now we're going to press the water and wastewater that we need to charge more for reporting, not for performance and not for improvement, but for reporting. And again, then they also want us to turn in reports on the criteria we base to do all these things listed above that we just went through. Again, someone that's going to take a skilled position, multitude of hours to put this together. Again, and who is judging this, and from what level and understanding are they coming at to review these documents. They also want you to go over water meter testing reporting, which in some communities there's separate water organizations and the wastewater, and they do or do not communicate or cooperate together. What is going to be the level of responsibility for each one of those to communicate and to work together? Again, not laid out in the documentation provided by the state. No one there to regulate this at the state level. No one to understand it at the state level. Very difficult. Cross-connection control and backflow prevention, not applicable to all the organizations. It's a hypercritical safety issue. It should not be watered down and placed into a bill where 80% or 75% of the individuals that'll be affected by the bill are not even going to need to worry about it, but they're going to want someone certified and to put a plan in place. Again, doesn't make much sense from a fiscal standpoint. And then last, the cybersecurity plan. It's another major expense, and it's strictly for planning and risk management. Not every organization that's going to be affected by this bill has a cyber presence. It is coming. However, a lot of places do not have a web footprint. We at Mount Pocono, we're working on it, and we implemented a certified security plan to do that, but it was at a major cost. It was more than $20,000 and more than $1,000 a month in expenses. So that's the plan that we have put in place outside of this. But that was for our own protection. We have a little bit of a larger presence online, and we wanted to protect ourselves. So again, but looking into the requirements of the bill, this is a major cost for small organizations. So I wouldn't come and complain about anything if I didn't have a list of solutions. So you can read inventory reporting, composite list of infrastructure, composite breakdown of yearly expenditures, report a list of changes, list of potential needs, your capital improvement plans, et cetera, et cetera. We can turn all that stuff in. Most of it is public knowledge anyway. A lot of it gets a vote, so I don't think there would be any problem for any of these public systems to turn that information in for someone to keep track of it. The next solution would be your local sanitarian having the responsibilities and to be able to communicate to Harrisburg on specific needs of each system. The local level review of an organization's assets are a lot more pertinent to what the state, I believe, is trying to accomplish with accountability. But at the same point in time, if the individuals going through these reports don't understand the systems, they're never ever going to be able to make recommendations or be able to say that the system's doing well or not doing well. And again, no system's the same, so having a local person that's understanding of each constraint of each system is going to be more effective. And last one that I put up there as an example would be permitting. When you go for any permits at DEP, these folks are very bright. They understand the system. They understand the risk for the environment. Putting some onus on those departments potentially and having more workforce there would be a much greater and efficient approach to correcting some of the issues that the state feels they have. It also would help the DEP in organizing permits and regulating permits as well, which then of course would improve nutrient contents in our waterways and our drinking water tables. So here's a little map of Mount Pocono. And then again, I asked the question, what is this going to cost a system that's 500 million gallons a day, 50 million gallons a day? 5 million gallon days, 500,000 gallons a day, or 5,000 gallons a day. Right now, we have a permanent 400,000 gallon facility. We've spent over 1,000 manpower hours creating the inventory list, preparing for an asset management plan outside of the regulation. In addition to the $50,000 of in-house payroll expenses, MPMA received a $75,000 grant from AT&T. The acquired services of RCAP Solutions put together the map that you're seeing on the right of your screen, and that is our collection system. They also helped us facilitate the purchase of ArcGIS and then helped us implement that and get us up to speed on how to update and operate that software on our own. The total expenditures before any asset management software was purchased now is at 125,000. Without the funding assistance, of obviously this cost would go directly to our constituents. So we'll continue this conversation. There's a look at our effluent, which is high quality. No software in place. That to put that in place is going to be another 15 to 70,000. The updates and maintenance to the asset management plan are going to be about 25 to 40 if we give it to the engineer consultant. About 75 to 90,000 if we're going to hire someone direct to manage the system, and then about 10 to 15,000 a year if we divert responsibilities in house. However, there'll be losses in manpower on other sections and risks to public safety by not having those people in place to work on operations and maintenance. The services provided by engineers and the asset management software companies will have a 0 to 5% effect on our workflow direction. We are a small organization. We talk to each other every day. We have good verbal and written communications. A lot of the services that the asset management software companies provide are workflow documentation, spitting out reminders of things like switching blowers or greasing equipment, something that we do regularly and is kept track of as in a system already. So for us, that the services provided specifically on workflow and the services provided directly on the maps will have like a less than 5% effect on our workflow at this point in time. And that's because we have so much information already in the system. We're not layering over. So a lot of the upfront work is done. It's just that now, again, from our personal situation, how is this going to affect us to spend this sort of money? And what are the ratepayers receiving in return for their expenses, which I think is the most important talk about all this, is that, when people purchase something or you have a consumer effect on a whole profession for the statewide, you think that the customers or the ratepayers would be receiving something in return. Again, from my conversations at the state level, I've heard accountability, but what is our permit for then? If this is bringing accountability, what's our permit for? And then what again are the ratepayers receiving for that? And then lastly, last slide. Again, I'm a manager of a small to medium-sized utility. My responsibilities cross into this asset management discussion. I do recognize, that asset management is a great tool and is something that can be used beneficial for all of us. However, when there's a mandate, the tools do not work the same. We don't talk about them within the parameters of our system or at the pace that our system can handle. Putting a deadline on this is going to be very detrimental to a lot of communities. Again, most utilities did not get compensation from the government during COVID-19. These utilities, the government bodies received money and made choices whether these utilities would receive any funds. Most of the time, they did not. Again, we have yet to rebound from that. We lost some people. We have an aging workforce that's not being replaced nearly at the same rate, and that's a huge problem as well. We have to answer to multiple layers of regulatory agencies separately. So, for instance, Mount Pocono, we fall under the Delaware River Basin Commission. We answer to DEP. We answer to Fish and Boat. We also answer to the EPA. So, I mean, again, there's already layers upon layers of regulatory, and now they want to add Public Utility Commission as another layer of compliance. However, again, nobody in that agency has the information of our permit standards and what we are actually trying to achieve. If anybody at the state level can show a reason why we're doing this, I I'd be more than happy to entertain it. However, I put this together for our informational basis. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you can always contact me. I'll be easily reached via the social media platforms, or you can find my work email online.